So let's just continue this conversation and bring in former Deputy Commander of Israel, Strait Misztal, Special Forces Agent Doron Kemple, and Acting Director of Foreign Policy for the Bipartisan Policy Center, Blaise Misztal, as well as retired U.S. Army Colonel, who was also a Ranger Training Commander, Colonel Bill Connor. Gentlemen, so great to have you all on this morning. Doron, let me start with you here. So really, as we've been reporting this morning, Iran did fire on 3 ships today in the Strait of Hormuz. And the IRGC says they now have, I guess, reported those vessels in their custody. They did this despite the fact that President Trump extended the ceasefire that was scheduled to expire today. But the president keeping the blockade on Iran's ports. Here's what he had to say. Quote, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day. Military and police complaining that they are not getting paid. SOS. Doron, what do you make of just kind of all of that right there?
I am very optimistic and I like everything that I see. I like the fact that there's a general now potentially amassing power in Iran, which means that if he takes control, we have a target, but we also have somebody that we can negotiate with. This is as not bad as it seems. This is very good from a long-term negotiation perspective. Let's remember, we've accomplished our tactical military objectives. We've broken their military and we've eradicated most of their leadership. Now what we can do is get to a deal, which the president is working on. And what I would do as part of that deal, make sure that there's a multinational force that controls the straits from now on to the next 30 years. In addition, remember that a significant part of the game is played under the table, undercover. And there are still forces, CIA, Mossad, and Special Operations Covert, that are working in order to get the leadership that we want in Iran. This is what's called regime change, not with military, but with covert forces. So with that said, I am very optimistic about the fact that President Trump is letting this general amass power. Remember, we've already proven that if we want to take somebody off the chessboard, we can do that. So even if we don't like this general, but he like his deputy, then in a week, the deputy is going to be the one in control of Iran. So I think all of this is very positive, Alex.
Okay. Blaise, I want to build off what Doron was just saying there. He seems pretty optimistic, but the peace talks that were scheduled for yesterday obviously been put on hold. J.D. Vance never left the ground. The reason, maybe this man that we're showing on the screen right here, Ahmad Vahidi, the head of the hardline Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, he's apparently seized control of Iran. He's considered a major stumbling block to forward progress. Again, building on what Doron just said, are you as optimistic? And when it comes to the leadership we are seeing over there in Iran, how do you see negotiations going? Because it just seems like they're in a bit of a disarray right now.
Yeah, good morning, Alex. I do think that we are in a good position here, and I am optimistic that this is going to end well for the United States and Israel and the rest of the world, one way or another. And I think a big part of that is this blockade that President Trump has put in place. It's something that we called for as early as January when Iran was massacring tens of thousands of protesters in the street, and it makes a lot of sense now. Because it does 2 things. As President Trump said in that post, it cuts Iran off from its economic lifeblood. If it can't export oil, it can't generate revenue, and it can't use that to either pay its military or buy new weapons. But secondly, it also cuts Iran off from resupplying. Yeah. We know that ships that had been at ports in China that had been carrying chemicals for building more ballistic missiles have already been turned back because of the blockade. If Iran's going to be able to rebuild its arsenal, it's going to need those chemicals. It's going to need that resupply from China and elsewhere, and it can't get it as long as we have this blockade. So I think the United States has the upper hand here. It can either force Iran to the negotiating table. If Iran won't do that, then it can keep Iran poor and unarmed. Yeah. And ideally, in that case, it can help create the conditions for those brave Iranians to go back to the streets. And if this regime isn't the one we want, and if we can't work with this general or whoever replaces him, as Doron said, then hopefully we can have the Iranian people get the regime they deserve.
Yeah, Colonel, I'm going to end on you here. I would love your thoughts, kind of the X's and O's. I mean, it seems like Iran right now, they're stalling. It's a battle of almost endurance for them. How much longer should President Trump wait for them to counter, to make a deal? What's the next steps do you see happening here?
Well, here's something to keep in mind. The last 2 weeks, we have poured in forces ported in aircraft, resupplied. Also, our intelligence has picked up everything they're doing. So, for example, they had hidden launchers, things of that nature. They pulled them back out. We know where they are. We know where their hiding places are. I think Trump right now is in a position where he could claim they're violating the ceasefire and start action anytime. So in a way, extending the ceasefire, but yet the caveat is they start shooting at ships, they board ships, he could unleash. And at that point, he's got surprise. Because one of the problems is if he had just waved in the ceasefire and then attacked, they know it's coming. So we're in a good position.
Okay. All right. All three of you gentlemen seem fairly optimistic right now. Deron Campbell, Blaise Misztal, Colonel Bill Connor, great conversation from you three. Really appreciate it.